Danny Flexen here for Seconds Out. Delighted to be presenting the latest edition of ReFLEXions. Here every Monday at 4:30 PM to talk about the boxing action of the weekend just gone. Although I'm not here specifically every Monday, because right now I'm outside the sports centre at the University of Kent, where Shane McGuigan trains his world-class stable of boxers. We've had the pleasure this morning, Jolie and myself, of talking to Daniel Dubois, new addition to the gym, and taking footage of some of his training as well. And we've also managed to speak to the man himself, Shane McGuigan, and Lawrence Okoli, who I've got to say, sorry to rat you out, Lawrence, but was late for the gym today. But we diligently hung around to speak to him. So you can watch all that on the channel, but I want to talk about a fight of the weekend, which is with one of Shane McGuigan's former proteges, Josh Taylor, who Shane took from the start of his pro career right up until unified world champion status with that victory over Regis Prograis. Very, very impressive that was. But Taylor's topped it perhaps now. He's now the undisputed champion at 140 pounds. The first British, Scottish, however you want to describe him, undisputed world champion in the four-belt era. I just want to clarify that, because I know a lot of people out there get a bit funny when you say first ever, and there were several in the past when there were only 3 or even 2 in the distant past belts at stake, or 1 in the really distant past, but I was not old enough to remember any of that. But yeah, four-belt era, first one, and he did it in good style as well, I thought. 3 judges' scorecards read 114, 112. Although they didn't agree on every round, they had the same totals. I watched the fight, I thought it was way too close. If you think 114, 112 is basically 6 rounds each, and then Taylor scored knockdowns in round 6 and round 7, which meant that he had a 2-point advantage overall. I had it, I think I only gave Ramirez 4 rounds in total, so that would have made Taylor a winner. It was like so it would have been 116, 112 minus the extra 2, so 116, 110 overall. You could have maybe given, I don't think you could have given Ramirez one more. I think I was being quite generous. I think it's either 3 or 4 rounds to him, no more than that. But Taylor just generally controlled the fight. He controlled the distance, he controlled the tempo, he controlled the manner in which the fight was fought. Right from the start, clever southpaw, kept his right foot mostly on the outside of his opponent's lead foot, was able to get his jab off, and when he did need to slip inside, he did so quickly, fast feet, effective combinations, and then back out again for the most part. And when Ramirez had to come in, because he couldn't beat Taylor from distance, there was no chance, when he tried to come in and unload his combinations on the inside, which is more his style, Taylor often would meet him with a sharp counter, or when that wasn't possible, he was pretty effective at tying Ramirez up. Now I know a lot of people watching wouldn't have been too happy with the amount of holding Taylor did, but it was judicious and it was at the right time, and if the referee's not warning him or taking any points off, he's well within his rights, and indeed astute to keep doing what he was doing, and it disrupted Ramirez's rhythm. That plus the fast, hard counters made Ramirez reluctant to come in, no more so than in round 6 when that sharp, straight left hook counter, sorry, it wasn't a straight left hook, it was a left hook, straight left hook counter. What is that? It was a left hook, a very short left hook, as Ramirez came in, left his defences open as he advanced. And Taylor, you don't often see a left hook from a southpaw, but it was the only punch he could effectively do because the distance between them was too small. Whipped it round and knocked Ramirez down. It was right at the start of the round. Took a while for Ramirez to get back into the swing of things. He wasn't hurt, he was more stunned. Came back into the round, but I think that made him even more reluctant about coming in to Taylor's close range. And then towards the end of round 7, a heavier knockdown was scored by Taylor. Beautiful uppercut, coming off of a clinch. It looked like Ramirez thought the referee, Kenny Bayliss, was going to split them. Felt Bayliss's hand on his arm, kind of went to step back, but Bayliss never actually said break or step back, so you fight to the referee's instructions. Taylor was well within his rights. Took a kind of half step back, and as he did, Josh Taylor unhooked his arm, uncorked a superb uppercut to drop Ramirez for the 2nd time in the fight. And I think there might have been, he followed up, but I think there might have been, if there was more time left in the round, there might have been a chance to actually get Ramirez out of there. As it stood, Ramirez came back really well. I know the judges, I think 2 of them gave him round 9, it might have been, and then the other 3 of the last 4 rounds they gave him unanimously. I wasn't quite so generous on my scorecard. I'm not known for my generosity, to be fair. I gave him rounds 11 and 12, but not 9 and 10. I think the judges were probably too generous to Ramirez. I thought Taylor won well. I thought it was a very intelligent performance, whereas against Prograis, when he was having some difficulty, he used his greater physicality, his greater fitness down the stretch. I think this time it was more the canny kind of nous of a veteran, even though as a pro he's got fewer fights than Ramirez, but obviously he was a very, very experienced amateur. Where does he go from here? Credit also, I should say, not just to Shane McGuigan, who developed Taylor for so long, but also to Ben Davison for being a man in the corner on the night. Gave some really good instructions in the corner, and there was obviously a well-drilled game plan in place. But now attention turns to what's next for Taylor. He said he's got no aversion to accommodate his WBO mandatory contender Jack Catterall in a homecoming back in Scotland, but said if something bigger comes up, he might be tempted to vacate. That something bigger could well be Terence Crawford, 147 pounds. It's a fight Taylor's talked about for a long time. Crawford struggling for elite opponents, especially now Errol Spence and Manny Pacquiao are fighting each other instead of him. Seems like it's a fight that ticks a lot of boxes and a real, near 50-50 tough fight to call. Can Taylor carry his physical strength and power up to 147 pounds? He was certainly the bigger man in the ring on Saturday night in Las Vegas, but Terence Crawford also has come up ultimately from lightweight himself, so it'd be interesting to see who's bigger, who's more skillful, who can manage the fight better, because that's what Taylor did so impressively on Saturday. But it's definitely one that I would like to see next. Well, I want to know what you guys think of the fight and what you'd like to see Taylor do next. Let me know in the comments below and I'll respond to some of them. Maybe you're more generous to Ramirez than I have been. But I will be back on Thursday for FLEXpectations, 4:30 PM, and the following Monday for the next ReFLEXions at the same time. As always, really appreciate your time. From the University of Kent, saying goodbye. Cheers.